The story begins with three siblings whose lives are about to change forever. The oldest is Violet, a 14-year-old girl with a talent for inventing things. Whenever she has some free time, she loves turning ordinary objects around her into useful little gadgets. And whenever she starts working on a new invention, she ties her hair back so nothing can distract her. Then there's her 12-year-old brother, Klaus. Klaus is obsessed with books and has read almost every book in their home. But what makes him special is his incredible memory. He doesn't just remember what he reads, he can even remember which page he found certain information on. And then there's their little sister, Sunny. Sunny is still very young and can barely speak, but she's definitely not an ordinary baby. She has a strange habit of chewing on almost everything she finds, whether it's a piece of wood or something as hard as a rock. But this happy life wasn't going to last much longer. One day, a banker arrives and gives the children some devastating news. Their parents are dead. Their parents had died in a terrible accident, and their family home had also been destroyed by a fire, but no one knew exactly what had caused the fire. The children return home with the banker, only to find their house reduced to nothing but ashes and rubble. Everything they knew was gone. Now they finally realize that their parents really are gone forever. While searching through the ruins, Klaus discovers a strange spyglass. At the time, he has no idea just how important this little object will become in their lives. The banker was also responsible for managing the family's money and property. Since the children had lost their parents, it was now his responsibility to find them a new guardian. After some time, he takes the three children to meet their new guardian. On the way, they pass a beautiful house, and for a moment, the children think their lives might finally get better. But when they turn around, their hopes disappear. The house they were supposed to live in was an old, creepy-looking place. The door opens, and their new guardian appears. His name was Count Olaf. It becomes obvious almost immediately that Olaf doesn't care about the children at all. He only cares about one thing, their fortune. Because according to their parents' will, all of their wealth and property would eventually belong to the children. That was exactly what Olaf wanted. So he quickly sends the banker away, leaving the three siblings alone with him. Inside, the house was filthy. Spiderwebs covered the walls. Some of the stairs were falling apart, and the kitchen was filled with piles of dirty dishes. There was also a room on the top floor, but Olaf strictly warned the children never to go inside. Then he hands them a long list of chores. They had to clean the house, cook the food, and wash all the dishes, and they had to do everything themselves. A little later, some of Olaf's strange friends arrive. That's when the children discover that Olaf is actually an actor, and his unusual friends are part of his theater group. Olaf demanded dinner before 8 o'clock. After that, he began rehearsing a play with his friends. But the play was so boring that his own friends ended up falling asleep during rehearsal. Meanwhile, the children went into the kitchen to make dinner, but there was barely anything edible in there. All they could find was rotten food and insects. Still, the three children refused to give up. Violet and Klaus managed to use whatever ingredients they could find to make some pasta. But instead of appreciating their effort, Olaf became even angrier. He yelled at the children and demanded roast beef. Then, without warning, he slapped Klaus. The three siblings were already devastated after losing their parents, and now Olaf was treating them horribly. But Violet refused to break down in front of her brother and sister. She reminded herself that this was their home now, and somehow they had to survive there. That night, Violet used her creativity to build a small makeshift bed. It was basically a little tent, and the three siblings climbed inside together. They also had a locket that belonged to their parents. When light passed through it, it cast the shadow of their parents onto the side of the tent. For just a little while, the three children were able to feel close to their parents again. And in that tiny moment of comfort, they finally found a little peace. But Olaf wasn't about to give up. He went to court and managed to prove that he was the children's legal guardian. Now, he officially had custody of all three siblings. And that was exactly what Olaf wanted. He didn't care about the children. He wanted their fortune. So he puts all three kids inside a car and leaves it sitting directly on a railroad track. The children panic when they see a train speeding straight toward them. There seems to be no way out. Violet immediately calls the banker, but the sound of the approaching train is so loud that he can barely understand what she's saying. Then Violet gets an idea. She ties her hair back and quickly builds a small device using whatever she can find inside the car. The device is designed to switch the railroad track. With the train getting closer every second, Violet throws the device into the right spot at the last possible moment, and it works. The track switches, sending the train down a different path and saving the three children's lives. A little later, the banker arrives. Sunny is sitting in the driver's seat, so the banker assumes that Count Olaf must have allowed her to drive the car. The children desperately try to explain that Olaf was actually trying to kill them, but the banker doesn't take their story seriously. Still, he takes the children away from Olaf's custody because he believes Olaf was allowing a child to drive a car, so the three siblings leave with the banker. Sometime later, he takes them to their second guardian. Maybe this time, their lives were finally going to be safe. Their new guardian was a scientist with a strange obsession with snakes. His house was nothing like a normal home. Exotic animals and different kinds of snakes were everywhere. He proudly shows the children his collection. First, he introduces them to a two-headed cobra, and then he shows them a three-eyed frog. But his most impressive discovery is saved for last. A huge black python called the Incredible Deadly Viper. The children immediately become terrified when they hear its name, but their guardian assures them that the snake is actually extremely friendly. It wouldn't hurt a human being. His name was Uncle Monty. That night, Monty plays music for the children, and for the first time in a long while, the three siblings begin to feel safe. They even tell Monty that their parents used to sing the same song. Monty is preparing to take the children to Peru the next day, but then a strange man suddenly arrives. He claims to be Monty's new assistant, Stefano, but the children quickly realize something is wrong, because this man isn't an assistant at all. He's Count Olaf. Olaf had disguised himself and followed the children there. His plan was simple: get rid of Monty, take control of the children, and eventually get his hands on their fortune. The children try to warn Monty that his new assistant is an imposter, but Monty doesn't understand what they're trying to tell him. So the children come up with another plan. They use the snake to send Monty a message, warning him that Stefano is an imposter. However, Monty misunderstands the situation. Instead of suspecting Stefano as Count Olaf, he starts believing that Stefano might be a spy who is after his latest discovery, the black python they were planning to take with them to Peru. But the next morning, Uncle Monty is found dead. Once again, the three children realize they've lost another guardian. The police arrive, and Count Olaf immediately changes his story. He claims that Monty was killed by the black python. The children insist that the snake is completely harmless and could never have killed Monty, but nobody believes them. Then Sunny walks straight toward the giant python. Everyone panics, afraid that the snake might attack her too. But instead of biting Sunny, the python starts playing with her. That's when the police and the banker finally realize the truth. The snake wasn't the killer. The real culprit was Monty's so-called assistant. And that assistant was actually Count Olaf. The police try to arrest him, but Olaf manages to escape once again. For the third time, the children are sent to a new guardian. This time, their new home is built high above Lake Lacrimose. When the three siblings arrive, they meet their new guardian, a woman named Aunt Josephine. She's obsessed with grammar and welcomes the children into her home. But the moment they step inside, they realize that Josephine is an extremely frightened woman. She warns them about practically everything. She says the refrigerator could fall on them, the chandelier could break loose and crash down. Even a glass doorknob could shatter and send pieces flying into their eyes. Josephine was afraid of almost everything. She believed that sooner or later, one of these things would end up killing her. Because of this constant fear, she barely ever left the house. One day, Violet asks her about their parents. She wants to know if Josephine knows how their parents really died, and most importantly, what caused the fire that destroyed their home. But Josephine avoids answering the question. Instead, she shows Violet an old photo album filled with pictures from years ago. As the children look through the photos, they discover something surprising. Josephine hadn't always been this afraid. She used to be brave. Then, in one of the group photos, they spot their parents. Violet asks if their parents had ever lived with Josephine, but before she can get an answer, the children notice another familiar face in the picture. Their second guardian, Uncle Monty, is there too. Now the children begin to realize that all of their guardians already knew each other. They start asking Josephine questions, but she quickly closes the album. Then she takes them into a room with a huge window overlooking the lake. Josephine tells them that her husband died in that very lake. According to her, he was killed by leeches, and Josephine firmly believes that those leeches can actually recognize the smell of humans. The next day, Josephine takes the children to the market. Suddenly, a man dressed like a sea captain approaches them. He starts talking to Josephine in a very charming and friendly way, but the children immediately recognize him. Once again, Count Olaf was standing right in front of them. The three siblings desperately warn Josephine that this man had already killed their previous guardian and was now planning to hurt them too, but Josephine refuses to believe them. Instead, she actually invites the captain back to her house. When the children return home, Josephine is nowhere to be found. Then they notice something terrifying. The huge window of the house has been smashed, and a suicide note is lying nearby. At first, it looks like Josephine has taken her own life, but Klaus notices something strange about the note. There are several grammatical mistakes in it, and Klaus knows that Josephine was extremely careful about grammar. She would never make mistakes like these. He remembers how often she used to check her grammar books. That's when Klaus realizes the mistakes aren't really mistakes at all. They're a hidden message. The three children carefully study the unusual errors and eventually figure out the name of a place called Curdled Cave. Now they're convinced that Josephine isn't dead. She must be hiding inside that cave. But before they can do anything, a terrifying storm suddenly hits. And one by one, the very things Josephine had always feared start coming true. Gas begins leaking from the kitchen. The glass on the doorknobs shatters. The entire house starts shaking. Then the refrigerator suddenly tips over toward them. The three children quickly duck out of the way and barely avoid being crushed. When the storm finally begins to calm down, they realize that a large part of the house has collapsed into the lake. The children are still alive, but now they're trapped on a wooden dock. Still, they refuse to give up. Using a heavy anchor, they manage to break the wooden structure underneath them. The dock starts collapsing, but at the last second, the children jump away and escape from the house. They then take a small sailboat and head toward the cave mentioned in Josephine's hidden message. Eventually, they reach Curdled Cave. They call out for Josephine, and after a while, she finally appears. The children ask her what really happened. Josephine explains that Count Olaf had threatened her and forced her to write the fake suicide note. The children tell her they came to rescue her. At first, Josephine is too scared to leave the cave, but after the children keep convincing her, she finally agrees to go with them. They head back across the lake. On the way, Klaus shows Josephine a paper with the strange eye symbol that he found in their room. He asks her what the symbol means. Josephine finally reveals the truth. She says the symbol is connected to the fire that destroyed the children's home. She and her husband had been investigating it, and the symbol had actually been created by her husband. But then, he was killed in a leech attack. The children immediately begin to realize that Count Olaf must have been behind all of this. Then Sonny eats a banana, and Josephine accidentally throws the peel into the water. That tiny mistake turns into a disaster. A massive swarm of leeches suddenly starts moving toward their boat. The children panic as the leeches begin attacking and destroying the boat. Then they spot another boat in the distance and start screaming for help. But unfortunately, the boat belongs to Count Olaf. Olaf rescues the children, but he leaves Josephine behind. He simply abandons her in the middle of the lake. Once again, Count Olaf has gotten rid of one of their guardians. A little later, the banker and the police arrive. The children desperately try to explain that Olaf had killed all of their guardians and was now planning to kill them too so he could steal their fortune, but the banker still doesn't completely believe them. From his point of view, Count Olaf had just saved the children's lives, so he actually considers Olaf a capable guardian. Olaf is thrilled. He hugs the three children and says he could never lose his 3 precious gems, no matter how much money someone offered him. But then the banker explains something that changes everything. According to the law, if anything happens to the children, Count Olaf won't receive a single penny from their fortune. Instead, their property will go to whoever Violet eventually marries. And that gives Count Olaf an idea. He invites everyone to attend his brand new play. The 3 siblings immediately become suspicious. They know Olaf must have another plan. Klaus uses his knowledge and everything he has learned from his books to figure out what Olaf is planning, and eventually, he realizes the truth. Olaf is preparing to steal the children's entire fortune. If Violet marries Olaf, he'll gain control over all of their wealth. And that was his real plan all along. He wasn't putting on an ordinary play. He was planning to use the performance to stage a real marriage. Violet confronts Olaf and tells him that nobody will believe his ridiculous act. She then points out that the marriage can only be legal if an actual judge is present. But Olaf has already thought of that. His neighbor happens to be a real judge, and she's going to be part of the play. Violet still refuses to marry him, but then Olaf makes his biggest move yet. He has already captured Sonny. She's locked inside a cage hanging from the top of a tower. Olaf threatens to drop Sonny if Violet refuses to marry him. Now Violet has no choice. To save her little sister, she agrees to the marriage. The play begins. The audience thinks they're simply watching a performance. But in reality, Violet's entire future is about to be decided on that stage. Meanwhile, Klaus refuses to sit back and watch. He starts coming up with a plan to save his sister. While the wedding scene is taking place on stage, Klaus secretly makes his way toward the tower. He enters the same forbidden room that Olaf had warned them never to enter. There, he manages to rescue Sonny. But while searching the room, Klaus notices something strange. A special eye-shaped window made using a magnifying lens. It looks exactly like the eye symbol on the mysterious paper, the same eye that was also marked on Count Olaf's tattoo. Klaus looks through the magnifying lens and suddenly sees something shocking. He can see the burned remains of their old mansion. That's when he finally understands the truth. Count Olaf was the one who set their house on fire and caused the death of their parents. The lenses had been positioned in a way that could concentrate and redirect sunlight, creating enough heat to start the fire. Meanwhile, the marriage ceremony has already begun on stage. Violet finally signs the marriage certificate. Olaf thinks he has won. He believes he now owns the children's entire fortune, so he stops pretending that it was just a play and proudly reveals the truth in front of everyone. The marriage was real, and now, he claims, he has legal control over the children's entire fortune. But Klaus isn't about to let him get away with it. Using the magnifying lens, he focuses a powerful beam of sunlight onto one spot. Slowly, the intense sunlight hits the marriage certificate. The paper begins to burn. Within seconds, the entire document catches fire and is completely destroyed. Now, everyone finally realizes the truth. They understand that Olaf is a terrible man who had been manipulating the children and getting rid of their guardians just to steal their fortune. Count Olaf is finally arrested. The judge sentences him for everything he had done to the children. He is even forced to face the same kinds of dangers he once used to terrorize them. First, he's tied to a railroad track. Then he's thrown into a boat filled with leeches. But somehow, Olaf manages to survive and escape once again. Still, the children's story isn't completely over. The banker still has to find them a safe new home. Before leaving, he takes the three siblings back to their old house. He tells them not to worry and assures them that the police will eventually catch Count Olaf. The children step inside what was once their happy family home, but now, all that remains is a burned-out shell filled with rubble. The three siblings look around at the place where they once lived happily with their parents. Then Klaus discovers something buried in the ruins. It's a letter their parents had written specifically for them. But sadly, it reaches the children only after their home has already burned down and their parents are gone. Violet and Klaus read the letter together. Their parents' words remind them that even though they're no longer there, their love will always stay with them. And with that little bit of hope in their hearts, the three siblings prepare to move forward and face whatever comes next.